Hey guys, it's your boy Jay, and this is Football Talk. And in this one, I am back with another reaction. Today, I will be reacting to Madden 25 current gen versus old gen side by side. Now, this is something that I'm super excited to check out because I haven't really seen anybody talk about this. Maybe they haven't, I just haven't seen it, but I just haven't really seen anybody talk about the old gen versus the new gen. Some things that are going to look different. Going to be updated, going to be superior in quality with the current gen compared to the older gen. But this is just I think a pretty fun video to check out. And you cannot see on your screen right now, but it's a Patrick Mahomes one, and I'm gonna tell you something. It's night and freaking day. You hear me? Night and day. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Alright, put the headphones on. Let's hop into it.
Let's take a look at Madden 25 on current gen versus Madden 25 on old gen. Current gen is the Xbox Series X/S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Hold on. I know I'm pausing early. Why does it look so washed out on Madden 25 old gen? You know what? Instead of me saying Madden 25, guys, by the way, let me turn on captions. Instead of me saying Madden 25 old gen, I'm just gonna say old gen. Why old gen? What? What is going on? Why is it so washed? Wow.
Old gen is the Xbox One series and the PlayStation 4. Now, much like last year, not too much changed on the old gen version of the game. They updated very few things and everything else has been the same for the third year in a row. And some of you may be asking, why are they still putting in an old gen? That I'm not sure of. I thought this year for sure they would not actually release an old gen version, but they did. However, if you do get the old gen version, it does come with dual entitlement, which means you can upgrade to the current gen version for free if you get a new console. So let's first start with some of the stuff that was updated. As usual, player likeness does get updated in both versions of the game. So you can see Jordan Love has his updated scan. Of course, they're going to look.
Not gonna lie to you, Jordan Love still look better in the old gen than he did in 24. Once again, the jury is still out if that was Jordan Love. Keep it buck with you.
Version of the game, so you can see Jordan Love has his updated scan. Of course, they're going to look better on the current gen than old gen because the tech is better, but they are still updating the scans for all the players, so player likeness will update as usual on the older consoles. Now, the only one they didn't update on old gen was Patrick Mahomes for some reason. Everybody else that got an updated scan or a new scan is on old gen, except for the updated Mahomes. Now we're looking at players that got their scans this year. Kenneth Walker is on both versions of the game, as well as Puka Nacua. So I'm just going to show you a few examples here to show you that the old gen guys did still get their updated likeness. But again, it's going to look a lot more realistic on current gen because the tech is that much better. But I don't think they look that bad on old gen. They look fine for the fact that those systems are as old as they are at this point. Here we got some of the rookies. Caleb Williams, I think, actually looks pretty good on old gen, to be honest with you. Not bad at all. We've got Jaden Daniels, of course, here. Just going to show you some of the bigger name rookies to show you what they're looking like on both versions of the game. If you were contemplating getting the old gen version, I mean, honestly, I think the best thing to do is to just download an updated roster, in my opinion. You won't have player likeness and you won't have the new uniforms, but other than that, you're going to pretty much have the same game you had last year. Speaking of the uniforms, that is another thing that did get updated on old gen, so you do have the new team uniforms. So the Texans, for example, they've got their new home away and their new alternate uniforms in the game. Going to look at a few of them here. We got the Broncos new uniforms also on the old gen version. Again, anybody that got new uniforms or new helmets or anything like that, you will also get those.
I do like that they are still updating the uniforms and stuff for the old gen. I think that's a pretty good detail. But I thought the Madden 24 was gonna be the last year, to be honest with you. But it will I'm still surprised that they're still giving out old gen. I'm gonna be really shocked if next year's Madden still has old gen support.
Updates on old gen. But basically the only thing that is updated on old gen are rosters, uniforms, and player likeness. That's it. Now let's look at the differences of the game like we do every year. So first, starting with the pregame presentation. On old gen, it's the same it's been since Madden 21. They have not changed it since changing it in 21. It's been the same. This is now the 5th year in a row of the same pregame, and they're just not going to change this stuff on old gen at this point if they haven't changed it by now. This is probably the last year for sure that they're going to put out a version on old gen. I'm actually very surprised that they even put out a version this year, because typically when you looked at the previous generation, this would have been the first year that they stopped releasing on old gen last time around. But for some reason this year, maybe a lot of people are still buying on old gen. I don't know, because that's the only reason I could see them still doing this. but you're not really going to get any changes aside from those rosters, uniforms, and player likeness at this point. Same goes for the Super Bowl celebration. This was updated a couple of times on the current gen over the last few years, but on old gen, it's still the same Super Bowl presentation that's been around since, I don't know, maybe Madden 17 or something like that. It's almost 10 years at this point. They've never actually updated that Super Bowl celebration on old gen. They only did it when they went over to the newer consoles a few years back, and then this year they updated it once again. So this is the second one we've had on the current consoles, whereas old gen is still working with the one they've had for a very, very long time. And the old gen version is actually a little bit longer, which is kind of interesting. It drags out a little bit longer than the newer one, but at this point, I mean, that doesn't even matter because people are just sick and tired of seeing it. So I mean, yeah, if you're still on old gen, I don't really think there's a reason to upgrade. I said that last year as well. You're only pretty much getting new uniforms. You can update the rosters yourself and still keep playing. The only reason to get it is if you're planning to upgrade within a month or two to the newer gen with the free dual entitlement. Now, hey, really quickly, if you're still here at this point of the video and you haven't subbed yet, you might as well go ahead and subscribe. That way you never miss out on any of this important Madden content or updates all year long. We're on the road to 700K and I would love for you to be a part of it. Moving on to the player movement here, like always, you'll notice that old gen is much faster and snappier and less realistic. And also notice Christian McCaffrey, for example, he has his signature running style on current gen. On old gen, he has a generic one. They do not have signature run styles on last gen. And here's where you really tell the difference. When you weave in and out between the numbers, just look how much faster old gen is. Look how much quicker he gets to the end zone. Look how snappy it is. He doesn't really have real locomotion. And the same applies to the ball carrier moves. These are the old school jukes right here. You can see they're much quicker, much snappier. Whereas on the current gen, these ball carrier moves like jukes and spins, they're a little slower. They're a little more realistic. If anything, the old gen Madden plays a little bit closer almost to college football in a way in terms of movement because it's really snappy. Here is a good way that you can kind of see the difference. Watch how quick McCaffrey will get to the end zone and how quick he turns and changes direction on old gen versus new gen where he has real locomotion where he has to stop and actually plant. Route running is another one of these examples. On the current gen, they updated this a while back where receivers will round their routes out a little more. They run them a little more realistically, whereas on old gen, they run them a little bit more robotic. They're like really sharp stops and cuts, whereas in real life, there's a little more finesse to it. That's kind of another big difference. Another small thing you might notice is the practice facility was updated on the current gen version of the game. The old gen version still has the same old practice field. Signature styles were also added for the top players like QBs this year, so you'll notice on the current gen version that the players will come to the line, do their signature stances, their signature moves, signature audibles, whereas on old gen, everybody's generic and pretty much the same. One thing I was surprised didn't get updated were the new kickoff rules on old gen. So you can see here we're on the old gen version. Also, you'll notice the scoreboard didn't get updated either. Usually that gets updated every year. This is still using last year's scoreboard. So no new kickoff, no new scoreboard either on the old gen. Whereas here you see on the current gen, this is the new kickoff rule. We can see the new scoreboard. Now, they have not updated gameplay on old gen since it moved over. They had updated stuff for the modes like franchise and career mode for the first couple of years. They brought those features to both versions. Never touched gameplay, but I thought with the kickoff rules, they would add this. Even things like the menu screen have not been updated this year. Normally, these...
Hold on right quick, guys.
Little small things would get updated each year, but this is still using the menu screen from last year and the year before on the old gen version. Same for the team selection screen. It's still using last year's version. It's not using the new one on current gen. So even stuff like this didn't get updated. The player cards and franchise are still the old version. It's not the new one. And you can see even inside franchise mode, they've stopped updating the mode stuff for the old gen version of the game as well. So franchise has not been updated for old gen in about 2 years at this point. You can see the interface is still the same, whereas on current gen, we have a little bit of a new UI. We have new features for franchise and stuff like that. The old gen version doesn't. Same goes for the NFL draft. You can see it's still the old NFL draft on old gen. Current gen, we have the new revamped draft that has the draft board. It has Roger Goodell. It'll have players coming out holding up the jersey and things like that. So when it comes to the game, like I said, I mean, it's rosters, it's player likeness, and it's uniforms. That's it. Game mode stuff's going to still be the same. Gameplay still going to be the exact same. And you can see here, even on current gen, we have more added to the draft like war rooms and players at home. You're not going to get any of that on old gen. Taking a look at the weather here for the rain, you can see a little bit better rain and also lighting on current gen. They have not updated weather on old gen. Here is another good example. You look old gen, you can see poor lighting. The jerseys and the helmets can't get wet and things like that. Whereas on current gen, you can see that the jerseys get wet, water beads up on the helmets. You have better lighting.
This is probably one of the best screenshots I've seen of the Madden 25. This is so hard. This should be like the opening, like when you get the game EA Sports, and then just show this.
and things like that. When you compare them side by side, I mean, that's just something that hasn't changed the whole time the new consoles have been around, but just wanted to show it to be thorough. Same goes for the snow. They finally updated the snow this year for
Yes,
current gen, but
sir,
of course,
and it
old
looks
gen
so
still has
good.
the old snow. So seeing it side by side, you can see the difference. Here is old gen snow on the field, and then the back walls where they pile up, you can see, I mean, it looks okay, I guess, nothing too crazy. But the newer gen version, it's a lot more snow. It looks a lot more realistic. The crowds aren't the biggest difference from new and current gen. They do look a little bit better. They get a little bit more active, of course, but nothing too crazy of a difference here. The sidelines are still the same on old gen, as you can see here. This has been one of the bigger differences between old and current gen. They have all the stick figure players. They don't even have names on the back of the jerseys. They don't have any real likeness on the sidelines for players. Whereas when you go over to current gen, there are still some fake players on the sidelines, but there's a lot more real players, like the starters on the sidelines are the real players. They get more active and things like that. Same for equipment. Here's current gen. We got a number of new things like new Nike dry fit sleeves, other Nike padded sleeves, McDavid shooter sleeves, all these different things. We got new cleats like Jordans, some Nike, some Adidas. None of the equipment was actually updated or carried over to last gen. This is only on current gen. You can see even the heritage stickers on the helmets are a current gen exclusive that's not on old gen either. Here's a view of the broadcast cam on old gen. Now, of course, they're still using the same scoreboard like I pointed out earlier. And the broadcast view, I mean, it doesn't look horrible or anything, but you'll see when we switch over to the current gen, it definitely looks a lot more like a real NFL game. Mainly because you'll see that players move around a little bit more on defense. They have the pre-play movement where they step up, backpedal, they put their hands up and talk to each other. They communicate. So the broadcast view on current gen actually looks like it could be a real game at times, whereas on old gen, you know, you could kind of still, it looks okay, but you could kind of still tell that it's a Madden game. Another clear big difference are player models and pads, of course. They've never updated this on old gen, whereas they're constantly tweaking it on current gen to make it look as good as possible, even though it could still use some work. You'll notice more realistic pads and body types on current gen, whereas old gen, a lot of people have the exact same body. They have the exact same big, bulky, crazy looking pads, and it just looks a lot less realistic. And even some of the modes are different between both games. For example, old gen still has face of the franchise. They don't have superstar mode, and they don't have the mini camp or the mini game drills either.
Hold on. Oh, it's back then anyway, but I thought they updated Superstar mode with last year's Madden 24 old gen. I did not know that they're still face of the franchise. Wow. Well, if you guys like face of the franchise more, you know, but I am glad that you can upgrade if you get you like a new system that you can upgrade for free. I do like that. But man, I'm still shocked that old gen still has the new Madden. But to be honest with you, it's just a roster update, guys. You know, it's just a roster update and some new uniforms. That's it. That's it. They only have the new kickoff. Like that is crazy. But I'm thinking more than likely this is gonna be the last year. You know, hopefully so then they don't have to do more, you know, double work, you know, make sure it works for next gen. I mean for last gen. Just they can just focus on current gen hardware. I'm hoping for that, but that's gonna do it for me, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this reaction. Love you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.